So this is a review copy of the game of Ham, which is something of a party game with a basis in the ideas of Cards Against Humanity. First of all, I have never played Cards Against Humanity. I knew almost nothing about it, but looking at this, I came up with some questions. So I decided to take a quick look at how that game works, looking at someone else's video, much better than mine tend to be, and at least for instruction on a game. And they, this game is basically derived from Cards Against Humanity. It's adding a structure to it, which is going to be this board play, and then some additional complexities to make the game, I don't know, maybe more competitive in spirit. It's kind of hard to tell. That's the feeling that I get, which is kind of an interesting thing, because in and of itself, from what I see of Cards Against Humanity, to me it's adding structure and, I don't know about complexity, maybe a little bit with some of the options that were outlined, that are present in a game that was before, that was entirely non-competitive, something called Mad Libs. You can still find those around too. And, I had great fun with Mad Libs. A couple of pieces of business to take care of before we actually start talking about the game, though. First of all, for those of you who maybe were expecting some Mississippi Fortress to be starting, I've been ill and haven't been able to drag myself up to the loft to play. And indeed, even this, I was hoping to get started yesterday, maybe even the night before, but my health has been too questionable. But today, I'm so-so. But also, I had agreed to do this as a review, so Mississippi Fortress looks like it's going to take some time. I would rather not split things up more than I already have. So yeah, let's just knock this off today. Also, party games. I don't think I've ever done a playthrough on a party game. I've covered a few party games. The best coming to mind for me would be, and the top of the class overall of that type of game, Once Upon a Time, which I absolutely love, and has to be seen as a party game. Yes, like this, it has a competitive structure. And why do I think I can do this one? Well, we'll see. I might be able to get a little help from my friends. But unlike something like Pictionary, I actually feel like the mechanisms in this are going to be somewhat playable under my solo conditions. In particular, like Cards Against Humanity, you draw a question type card, and players have a handful of answer cards. They choose the answer cards that they want to play, and then there's essentially a judgment that goes on. However, if that's all there was, I think I would have more trouble with this, because in that case, all I would be doing is, reading cards and judging them. But there's also a strategy within the board and the control of those cards. So let's look at what we have. First of all, we have a set of these question type cards, which might give you a number of pieces of information on one of these gray cards. So when a gray card, first of all, this one has a single blank spot. So basically you read this and the players are going to be trying to fill that in with the pink spot. What's the additional information on the front here? Well, the ham here shows two numbers. Those two numbers are your choices of movement on the board if you win this card. And then also each card has letters on it, and the goal is to spell ham, and that gives you a certain special bonus if you manage to do that. The actual question, the actual answer cards, these are things that fit in to those slots, basically. And then, you know, there's a little bit to make it funnier or cuter or whatever. Like Cards Against Humanity, this is not particularly designed for people who are very straight-laced and not, you know, it's intended for a certain level of silliness and willingness to be non-politically correct. Now, what about these things? Well, that's a good question. These give you special rules that apply to board operations. They can also be traded away, and they're based on the colors that are on the board. The board itself has multiple configurations. I have set up here one of the recommended starting formations, but basically you start the game, you know, when you buy the starter set, you get 4 different boards that are double-sided, and you can pretty much align them in many different ways. What are the different colors indicative of? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, because I gotta peel through the rules a little bit. I've read them, but as usual, I'm going to do my rules through that. We also have player tokens, which are not too exciting. I am seeing with all these different player tokens, I mean, what do we have here? 4, 8, 16 player tokens. There's some closeness in color that I find difficult to discern. They're not too hard when they're right up next to each other, but if I was looking at them on the board, that would be problematic to me. My color distinguishment is not good enough for those. I don't know, you know, but those are just player markers. You could use some kind of tokens, Monopoly pieces, friends, whatever. Yeah, we'll get into the friends in a bit when we start actually playing. So, what about the basic rules of the game? Well, let's take a look at the different kinds of spaces. So these colored spaces, if you land on one of those, you get a card of that color. If you land on one of those through winning a gray card. And the numbered spots, if you land on one of these, you get to move ahead, or move further, that many spaces in any directions you like. Wow, zeros? Really? Are those totally useless? Yeah. The white spots. These are sort of reset spots. If you get knocked back, that's as far back as you go. Well, that can be pretty far, you know, but there's a bounce back type rule. The gray bounce spots, apparently there are special rules that will occasionally knock you all the way back to one of these. They're gonna, I assume, be based on these cards. And then the goal spot, well, in this game there's only one on this board configuration. It's possible there might be more than one, in which case you have to go through all of them, and then the last one becomes special. In order to land on one of these, you have to land exactly. If you don't, you bounce out of it and backwards. I'm trying to remember. So, one of the games, Parcheesi type-based games, and I don't remember which one, it might be Parcheesi, has that mechanism where you bounce back out of things, and some of them have, you must land exactly, so you're not allowed to move if you don't land on it. I don't know which one matters more. Okay. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get 10 of these answer cards so that they have some choices when they look at the answers that they get to play. You set up the board in various formations that you like. If you're playing the full game, you need these guys. And everybody's going to set up at the furthest white spot from the goal. There are options. There are a lot of options to the game, and we'll get to those in a bit. Okay, so there are multiple ways to play the game. You could play it just like Cards Against Humanity, where the judge reads a gray card, and then people pick their pink cards as answers. The judge gets to choose who the winner is, maybe with some consent from the other players, maybe not. There's no indication in this, but when I saw people playing Cards Against Humanity, they seemed to try to get an agreement. Yeah, this is the right one. You could also conceivably play with just the board, where you just draw these and do movement. That sounds completely pointless to the idea of the game. The idea is hey, Cards Against Humanity is cool, let's do something like it, but let's impose a little bit more something to it, a little bit more structure, a little bit more competition to it. So I don't know what a pure competition game that's driven only by randomness. I don't know how much excitement there is to that, but it might be a way to learn the board movement a little bit. I don't know. Okay. And with the card play, whoever is the winner of a round becomes the judge, and they can't win the next round. It's a disadvantage to be the judge, although there are no rules on judgment, so you could conceivably make judgments in order to help yourself win the game. And that's neither encouraged nor discouraged in the rule book. I think it would be up to individual groups to decide how much they're willing to accept that. Okay. The main way to play, though, is to mix the two. The judge reads the card, the players play their pink cards, and then the winner moves forward based on the number on the bottom of the gray card. And all these colored cards are in play, all the special rules on the board are in play, and basically your goal is to hit here. Maybe, because there's different ways of rules. Okay, here's some rules that you must play the game with. If you're playing, well, they say mandatory rules. I don't think they really are. They're all optional. They're all optional. But these would be the base game, and that's what we're going to play. Colored cards can get traded in order to move forward. Having given a chosen colored card to a chosen target player moves you one space. If you give a chosen card to a random player, and you could roll a die or whatever, I don't know, they suggest randomizing the counters. Well, if you're randomizing the counters, that's kind of problematic because they're all over the board. And this only works with the board. That allows you to move two spaces. And you're not allowed to do this to avoid getting bounced or something like that. It's only... but there's no real order to it. It's just you can't interrupt into an occurrence with it. Okay. Excuse me. Some of the gray cards have more than one pink card associated that has to be played with them, and they give a protocol for how to read them. The bottom pink card is read first, and the top one gets read last. Okay. The gray cards have H, A, or M on them. If you are able to spell ham with a set of these, you can negate the effects of a colored card, either partially, completely, or you can prevent someone from doing the gift giver mechanic. I don't know how long that prevention goes, we can see. Partial negation of a colored card means that you get to choose which people it affects. And again, you can choose to make it affect everyone, or to affect no one. All other cards are just negated completely. Now, once you spell ham and use it to block colored cards or something else, you lose these, maybe. Or they go into your scoring pile, if that's a case in the game. One-way ticket. You can, I don't know what this is. You can move any direction you want, but you can't double. Oh, this is normal movement. Your movement has to be not doubling back. So you basically can't move over the same space twice. Unless you're hitting the goal spot, then you bounce out. Okay. Stack pile. Okay. If multiple people are trying to play colored cards at the same time, whoever puts theirs first is on the bottom of the stack, and you operate it like a computer science stack. You work from the top down. So the last person who played resolves their card first. And that means that you can't really impact things that are put on top of you. Very much like Magic works. If you're playing on the board and you have way many players, like 8 or more players, you also can add the option to add the 2 numbers on the bottom to give yourself greater movement. Okay, the Peace Bully rule. Whenever you land on another's piece, when you do gray card movement, that person bounces back to the last white spot that they passed, or the closest white spot, bounce spot. If you're on a white bounce spot, you can't be bounced back, and the host gets to decide all the rules if there's any dispute. Okay. Well, that's one way to solve it. Now, how do you win the game? Well, it seems obvious. Yeah, you reach here, right? No, they didn't want to make it that simple. So they made all kinds of different options, some of which work when you're just playing cards, some just board, some when it's both. So like, you could do it by the number of gray cards you win, or the first to finish the board, or the number of points on the gray cards. Now, you can mix multiple game-winning conditions, where if somebody reaches one or the other, they win. You can also add different game win and end conditions, which is kind of a really interesting way to play. That I would consider kind of, the advanced situation is, hey, you have to reach here, but you have to have the most points on your cards, or the most cards, or something like that, which to me is kind of like, we had certain card games, I believe Brioche worked this way, where there's something you want to do to win the game. Hearts works this way. There are times when you don't want to make somebody lose the game because you're not in the lead, and you might want to try to keep them in the game. Same kind of similar situation here, except you're dealing with just your own victory condition. Brioche is a little bit less common, so yeah. And you could also make up your own victory conditions into something like this. Okay. And then they give examples of these different conditions, etc. Some optional game variants. I have no idea what this origin story thing is about. A judge picks a gray card that sets the theme. Each player gets 4 pink cards and must make a short story that fits the context of the gray card. I almost get the feeling that this is like not filling in the cards, but kind of a once upon a time type thing where you make a whole story. Trying to link the cards together, I'm not sure how much additional words you can put in order to make a story out of them, and then this could also be played with the board, and it's a completely different game in that way. Okay, split into teams, and you play the board portion of the game as a team, even though you answer questions separately. Okay, and then a whole bunch of other options. So, for example, the mandatory rules could be removed from the game or changed. If you don't like the cards in your hand, you can trade them in. So some of these seem pretty mellow in terms of like, this is a mulligan type thing, and you miss the next trick as a penalty. A fake player who automatically moves forward so many times just to produce a time limit to the game. Randomize the optional rules. Here's one: winner of a round must kiss the loser of the round. Gift giver can trigger Peace Bully, so if you land on someone through the gift giver, you get the capability to knock back. And that gives you a little bit more control over the pieces. Card movement allows the Peace Bully, that's knocking people back. Ham allows you to move forward. And you can see there's just a huge number of these different options to, mix up and make more complicated. And you can come up with your own too. There's no question there. Let's take a look at some of these others. Gray cards with judge creates the rules is determined by the group, not just the judge. There's just a lot of different ways that you can play this, and you could put it. Here's some ties, how to deal if someone, if the judge can't pick a particular winner, he can say, well, you two tie, and make them like do some kind of some kind of thing, including things like, a dance-off, or there's like some truth or dare type stuff in it, etc. I don't know. Just a whole bunch of stuff in this that can add to the game to change it, and then they have some drug and drink related options to add to it. It definitely seems like a game that would rather fit nicely to being in an altered state of some sort or another. I can see that, in throwing some drinking mechanism into it or drug mechanism into it. I'm not sure that really makes a lot of sense to me. I think just sitting there drinking while you're playing or smoking while you're playing would make a lot more sense. All right, so that's the basis of the rules. I think I'm going to separate out the intro so I can get something up quickly and then start setting up and playing it, rather than do this as a quick hit, because I think this game is going to take longer than just a quick hit. But you know what? I'm going to probably reserve the intro and maybe merge them if it ends up not being as long as I think it's going to be. It just looks like it's going to take some time, especially if I'm reading through cards a fair amount, because part of the point to this is to show off the play of, some of the humor that's just inherent in the game. So since we're playing a party game, and a party game doesn't really work without friends, I decided to bring some of my friends into play, and I'll introduce you to them. This is Joy. She's an octopus. She is going to be the host of the game, and that's the first starter, because she's played some Dominion with us before. I think this is the first time I've done this. It's based on an idea that Hellar Gregor used to do with his games. He'd assign either toys or eventually real people cards to the different players to give them personality. And that'll help me a little bit in terms of deciding what people think is funny and what they're going to put forward. This is the little angry man. Joy is always happy. The little angry man's always pissed off about something. Here's the skeleton. He's the oldest of my friends. Well, don't tell him he's missing his legs. But, yeah, he was the first we found. And we have a whole collection of little things we found outdoors who have joined us, including a whole squad of soldiers. Maybe almost, more than one squad. But, he's into kind of macabre things, and he gets a good joke. And then here we have Empress Sandy, who has presidential aspirations, so he's sitting on top of the White House there. Empress Sandy is particularly erudite, and we'll see how that fits in, or at least my interpretation of that. One thing I noticed right away, the box kind of serves as a way to hold the cards, but it would be interesting if the inset were set up so that it created more of a card shoe type thing. I can't pull this inset out and get too much gain out of it, so I'm doing it inside the box, but I can see as the cards start going down, that's going to be kind of problematic. So maybe I'll figure something else out in that. Clearly there's too big a stack of cards in this game to not have like a shoe or something. Alright, I know I'm going to have to pause a lot because I'm going to be reading different groups of cards and making decisions. So I'm going to pause right off the bat to relight my pipe. I'm going to need it for this one. She's going to get a little bored during the game, and she always does. And she loves pumpkins, so she has her toy pumpkin there. Okay, so she's going to draw the first card and read it. Since becoming president, Donald Trump proudly brags about blank, claiming that it will make America great again. Now, each player then takes their cards and searches through them, giving someone hallucinogenic drugs, binding them and covering them in cockroaches. I don't think the angry man's into that one. He's probably going to be the one with the most trouble with this game. I don't even know what Levodoches are. Roughly translated at penis at 12 inch. It's a rare genetic... Okay. Well, maybe. Pressing into a baby's soft spot. Masturbating to your reflection in the mirror. He proudly brags about masturbating to your reflection in the mirror. Probably not. Drinking the water in Mexico? Well, maybe. sounds. Make it. Well, come on. Yeah, definitely. Making fun of minorities is going to be his choice. Now, technically, he would put this card face down or whatever. I'm going to leave it face up. And then I make a similar decision process with the other players. So, let's take a look. Making fun of minorities, claiming that it will make America great again. You know, that's like so fucking apropos. It's going to be hard to beat. However, Skeletony comes up with, a 24-hour KKK hotline. That's up there too. An all-you-can-eat prostitute special, claiming it would make America great again. Well, yeah, maybe. Oh, what does Joy think? She thinks the aproposness is interesting, but then there's also the humor factor. Which one made her laugh the most? And here's where you might have, hey, you two have to duel this out using one of the mechanisms in there. She's a little torn. She likes this one the best, 1 through 4. I'm going to say 5 or 6 on the hotline. Yeah, she's going to go with the 24-hour KKK hotline. Now, she's got no reason to worry about board position for anyone based on this. So, what do we have? Well, the skeleton can move 1 or 5, and you can move diagonally and stuff like that. So he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get to a white spot, or he could do something to get himself to a colored spot. In order to get a card. But gaining the white spot sounds really good. So I'm just going to run up there and do that. Everybody who lost a card or used a card replenishes. And if you use 2, you replenish 2. And now the skeleton gets to draw one of these. Now this card is stored and is in his value hand. How do Colombian people solve their problems? Well, we know where that should go. We're going to look at other people's cards to make a decision there. Okay, well, munching on some guano. Empress Sandy is happy with that one. Smoking a doobie. Definitely coming close to the optimal solution, as it were, but the optimal solution might not be the best from any particular person's judgment. Giving someone hallucinogenic drugs, binding them, and covering them in cockroaches. Now, munching on some guano is definitely the choice that I would make. However, Skeletony thinks this sounds more deadly and is going to give the point here. Because, you know, that's just what he likes. So these go away. We get this card, and that's 4 or 8 for yellow. I might as well go further, get myself a yellow card, force 2 players to sit out a trick. Now that's not something I want to do right now. Do I particularly want to trade that in for some movement? No, that's pretty powerful. There are only 4 players in the game. I can guarantee myself the winning position by knocking 2 players out of a particular trick. So that's pretty damn good in 4. Alright, and I collect a card. Alright, and draw a new one. As punishment for his crimes, Prometheus was chained to a rock and forced to experience blank every day for all eternity. Okay. And dying on the toilet. Hey, it's about death. Skeletony loves this. It seems to fit. Bingo. A Dullahan. Well, this is one of those, geez, what the fuck? There are a few of these, like the dick one. It's a fairy in Irish folklore that rides a black horse and carries around his head in a human spine. Kills people by calling their name. Gates open at their approach. It dislikes being watched and sees On the darkest night, only gold deters it. Yeah, that sounds like something Empress Indy would say. Travis the chimpanzee. Now, this is a problem of Travis is best known for mauling a woman and literally ripping off her face and hands. Shot dead, gained fame posthumously. A bunch of new exotic pet laws got passed. Well, there's no question. The angry man is going to give this one to the skeleton. Although, he's kind of like, I don't know if I should let the player who's already doing well do well. But there's a certain level of, none of the rest of this works, does it? Or do I want to give a Dullahan the option just because I'm kind of cheap? On a one, I'll do that. No way I'm giving Travis. That's too lame. Okay, so we're going to give this one to the skeleton. And he gets 4 out of 8. And I hope I'm going to have to count my cards and make sure I dealt out cards. I think I did. 4 out of 8 for the skeleton. 4 or 8 for the skeleton. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't bounce anyone. 5, 6, 7, 8. Get a yellow card. Sure. Huh. Even stronger. Not actually perhaps useless. So I may want to trade this away for a chance to move. Now, there's a restriction. You can't trade away a card for something like 3 rounds after you get it. And this card is basically useless by the way I count it. Because you will either force no one. You'll be forcing no one to play pink cards. Now, you could combine this with Ham to reduce the number of players. But I am going to trade this away immediately. And we'll start a counter on that. Put a counter up here. In order to give the card there and move. I'll give it at random. I don't care who gets it. I'll move 2 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll go to Empress Sandy. That's a fine place for it to be. And I will move 2 spaces by giving a random card. Now I have 2 cards there. I got to count everybody's cards, make sure they're right. I'll do that before I start the next round. Yellow would like a shot at catching up to purple. So I am going to force 2 of the players out of this trick. You have to do it before the card is drawn. It just means I get an auto win. I can see it's an M. That's a letter that I don't have yet. What is something elephants never forget? Now I can use a stupid card for this because the other 2 players are locked out. By the way, I was wrong on the card count. I had forgotten to draw cards at least once. Well, exactly once. And that's something that I could see happening quite a bit during the game where people are like, oh shit, I'm down to like 5 cards. What the hell? Here, the worst person was at 8. So he's going to fill this out with something he does not mind throwing away. A card that's not particularly funny. Please note, if somebody had Ham, they could negate this for themselves. I'm going to discard the big cock. Oops. Why don't I take that one as my redraw? And I don't know what to do with these. I guess I'll put them in with all my discards and sort them out later. I've gained this 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could land there, but there's no bounce back on that. Or I could get myself a color card. I'd rather get the color card. And I get an orange card, which I could play immediately. You can pick you can make an additional pink card play this trick. You draw up to 10, and yeah, just gets you a couple of chances to play in a hand, that doesn't really thrill me. I'll take this and I become the lead player. Do I want to trade this away? He has passed one round. He'll be able to trade that away. That's a useless card, so it can only be used as a trade away. This one is almost useless. Do I want to gain some ground? Not particularly, because it's not going to get me past the white spot, and it would put me ahead of him. And that would be unwise. So we'll draw one. Social workers have started using blank to help victims of sexual abuse open up. It's a little angry man who's read this one, so he makes the judgment, and the skeleton thinks a shot glass full of cum would help victims of sexual abuse open up. Maybe? A cheap shot at someone's sore spot. Or accurate stereotyping. I'm kind of at a loss with these. Being the angry man, I am going to pick the person who is doing the worst, who in my view is Joy. I'm going to go with accurate stereotyping. So yeah, she gets a 2 or a 3. And I don't know what one color is compared to the other, so we'll go grab a green card. Force the judge to pick another pink card. Well, that's kind of powerful. Judge picks one. You don't like the fact that they didn't pick you. Hey, pick the next one. But once you start introducing gaming mechanisms like that, my fear is the decisions among the pink cards are going to be based more on gamey decisions. That it's going to be less and less about the humor of the game and more about board position. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that except maybe some social stigma towards, not picking the obvious, funniest answer. And I really don't know what to say about that. The game's not that interesting if you're making gamey decisions on that kind of thing. And I'll do some cleanup. Really the same problem that comes in Once Upon a Time, which is that you'll get some players who want to win the game so much that they stop paying attention to the humor and the story of it. And in this, because it's a judgment type thing, one person that game is just ruined by someone playing that way. One person continuously making such judgments, well, they might be disqualified by all the other players because of their action, if most of the group is okay. So I think this can survive it a little better. Anyway, Joy is going to draw herself a card. What causes extreme mental illness in children? What did she feel about this? This was a cool one. What causes extreme mental illness in children? We'll see. Our answers are pressing into a baby's soft spot, being so fat and gross even your mom avoids you, and surviving an abortion. And Joy is kind of tossing up between these. She's more of a fun-loving type. She would like the humor here more. Obviously, pressing into a baby's soft spot is the most likely result. Surviving an abortion is pretty likely too, but being so fat and gross even your mom avoids you, I am just in such a toss-up here, and this would again be where I'd probably force a challenge between these. These two being the most reasonable, this one being kind of humorous. In Joy's case, she is just torn. She's going to go with surviving an abortion, which the skeleton loves. He definitely would have picked that one right off the bat. So that goes to Ampersandy. And Ampersandy can go 1 or 3. Well, time to be a dick. Boink. Get a green card. This is done. Let me look at my green card. Oh, you know what? Shit. Hold on. Wait. No, he liked his card. Yeah, and she was the one with the green card one. Yeah, we're good. Now, she could have forced the judge to pick another pink card and prevented that harm, but on the other hand, she could have just picked another card and prevented that harm. So, got this up here. Everybody tosses one and gains one. Whoops. And I seem to remember somebody wanted to trade away a card, but yeah, this one was pretty iffy, but he still doesn't want to do that. And that means this Empress Sandy is up next with a card. What do people in the future think about when they think of Raiden? Oh. What do people in the future think about when they think of burial? It's the skeleton after all. All right, let's see what people think. So this is one where the judge gets to add to the question. My player is mixed up. Empress Sandy seems to be playing to Skeleton-y. Skeleton-y? I'm not sure with this one, but whatever. He chose it. Okay. Refusing to vaccinate your kids. Yeah, that could result in burial. A pale motherfucker. Yeah, that would be what you bury. A human garbage disposal as a means of burying. Interesting. Again, kind of torn here. And Empress Sandy is looking a 1 or a 2. It would be safe to give this to Joy. I'm not sure I like that as much as the other two answers, though. So, I am going to give this one to the Angry Man because that'll allow him to bounce the skeleton back. Of course, it gives him another card and gives him the capability of playing Ham, which would be a problem. But, whatever. So he'll do that rather than picking up another card. That puts the play over here, and I have cards for everyone to go out. I'm going to take a little rest. This game definitely is not one you're supposed to take breaks in, but you know what? It's a little different when you're playing solo and trying to take on these personalities and see what's going on. Okay, so another card here. How does Chris Brown get the ladies? Well, for someone as disassociated with common media as I am, I barely know who this guy is. I think he's a rapper who got in trouble for a little bit of domestic violence or something along those lines. That's about what I know here. And I may be wrong. Maybe he's hip-hop and not rap. Maybe it's a little bit of rape and not domestic violence. I don't know. Hey, I didn't do my cleanup. Better get those out of the way. But yeah, we'll come back with the answers to that. But obviously, you know, where things have, and this is kind of modernish, although that, I don't know if it's all that modern anymore because I recognize it. But yeah, you know, it's got current events and stuff like Donald Trump in it, where, you know, it's gonna age very quickly. So unless they can come out with expansions the way Cards Against Humanity does, it's going to be kind of more difficult to keep the game fresh. Okay. In particular, what I wanted to say is it's also going to kind of rely on who the fuck's this? And this would be a place where some kind of note about who this fucker is might be somewhat helpful because, you know, if my dad and mom were playing, they wouldn't know who the hell this was probably. My mom might. She watches a lot of that kind of TV type stuff. But my dad would not be aware of this at all. So, you know, whatever. Skeleton, he has too many good answers here. See, I don't know. I don't think he's been accused of the young, which would definitely make these two more appropriate, but he might be. So I'm going to go with the Trustworthy White Van. If I could play 2 cards here, I probably would. But anyway, unfortunately, nobody else had a great card. So a Trustworthy White Van is definitely the one. How do I feel about a bad person doing bad things versus a functionally dysfunctional relationship? I think my chances are iffy there at best. I don't think it's worth spending a card to get rid of the best answer when I'm really not sure which way my opponents will go. I know that I've lost, but I don't know that trimming 1 card out is going to help me. So yeah, this is going to go over to Skeletony. And he has 1 or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He'll run and get himself a yellow card. This is useful. Our card is something can always cheer up something. The dead. Okay, my mind is stuck on Skeletony, but it is his turn this time. Oh, a fate worse than death. Yeah, that's the kind of cleverness you expect from Empress Sandy. Asbestos. Yeah, I don't know. And body snatching. Hard call here. Definitely not Asbestos. A fate worse than death. He kind of gets that. Body snatching sounds like fun, though. Unfortunately, he doesn't really want to give him the card. So I'm going to throw in for a fate worse than death. I think that's the better choice here. However, not useful. Again, she doesn't want to jump in. He's already won, so he's not going to do it. So yeah, Empress Sandy has just won this one. It's 4 or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Might as well get a color card. Again, a useful card. Sandy's draw. How do millennials propose? All right. Interesting question is the card available to be read? My assumption is from the rules that no, you can't see the point values on the card to determine do you want to win this trick or not. So for example, purple would very much like to win this one. However, even not knowing, they're going to play this and prevent the little angry man from playing in this trick. He thinks he's clever than our octopus friend Joy. It's going to be a hard call. A lunchbox filled with cocaine-laced joints and sleeping with the groom. I think Joy has it here, especially since she's so far behind. So we're going to give it to her. That can get us to this gray spot. We could get a color card instead, but we'd rather make some ground. Which he could have avoided this by discarding his ham cards. I'm not using them as part of the victory condition, so they can just be discarded in this case. If they were part of the victory conditions, they'd have to be stored somewhere else, just to indicate that they weren't valuable. And let me deal out some cards to people. I guess the most recent History Channel documentary showed how blank got famous for blank. And the angry little man has been forced to sit out. We got a couple of interesting ones here. Remember, the top is read first. So, showed how the Slender Man got famous for riding the obesity train. Now, if anybody had anything with aliens, that would obviously get some extra points for History Channel, but nobody did. A horde of nappy-headed hoes for yelling at penises to do their job. They're both funny. And Joy is going to give this one to Empress Sandy because of game state, really. He's going to be able to knock someone down with that. So, 4 or 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, not so good, but nobody else would be knocking anyone out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Gives him a red card. He'll go and grab a card. Switch out up to 3 pink cards. So if you have cards you don't like, you can get rid of them. That's great. At this point, Ampersandy has the shitty useless card. I'm going to hand this at random to another player. It'll go to Joy. And we'll put the die over here to start counting. And he gets to move 2 spaces for that, which gets him beyond the next save point, if you want to call it that. Getting onto the last board, essentially. This is the last board, but the point is, this is, you know, all one sort of board area. It doesn't really seem to make much difference which direction you go, except if other people are going in one direction, you might want to choose the same or a different direction than they are. So what just happened? Ampersandy won the card, and I've got a bunch of cleanup to do because there's people with 2 cards each. Okay, and we got a question here. What's the most traumatizing? Okay, what do we got here? Brock Turner. I mean, whatever. Getting an STD from a toilet seat. Now, he had actually had another good choice, but this one suited his personality more, and cock blocking. So, the judge knows the cards and knows that we're not going to see an advantage here. If I'm choosing between these two, well, I will give... Who's pink? Oh, orange. Okay. I'll give this to the skeleton, I guess. I think cock blocking is a little funnier there, but I don't know. Pretty sure Brock Turner's not going to win, so I don't want to use my bonus card for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go in the other direction so that we go another space. Now, we do not get a green card for this. What is a guilty pleasure for people in India? So Ampersand has a particularly one of those strange ampersand style humor, perfecting the art of loneliness. Necrophilia. Why in India in particular? I don't know. Masturbating to your reflection in the mirror. Again, I don't know. But necrophilia involves the dead. And of course, Skeletony likes that in particular and sees Joy is also not doing very well. Which means we make a quick check on cards. He could have swapped something up, but he really liked his. That's not terribly useful. I should trade that shit away. So I think I'm going to pick Joy on this one. And that is a 3 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. They share a space. That's allowed because of the specifics. And Joy will be getting the play this time. And her draw is... Why was Miley Cyrus banned from the Dominican Republic? Well... a night that starts with the words, let's take some tequila shots. And that makes far too much sense. A sale on fair trade slaves and abducting people and forcing them to fight to the death in gladiatorial combat. Well, what am I willing to do? In part, I'm kind of interested in seeing him go ahead. So, what the hell? You know, this is the problem. It's too likely that you're going to have this kind of even judgment on things where it's like, I'll let game state decide it. I don't know if that's good or bad. So 4 out of 6. That's a knockback. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a knockback. They don't like each other. And we get a green card. Okay. What is the kinkiest? Giving people rabies and keeping them chained until they go insane. Hospice care. And Dr. Love and his magic stick. Now, obviously, Dr. Love and his magic stick is the only sexual one in here. There were other choices, and indeed, because of who Joy is, she picked this rather than one that I thought was funnier. The Little Angry Man, what's his feeling about this? Well, that's a hard call. Is he up for the cleverness of Ampersand with hospice care, or does he like the more obvious choices? I am more tempted to go over here with hospice care. However, Joy thinks, oh, I don't know why that's funny, but mine's the only one that actually fits, so I'm going to play this, and ends up getting beaten out because he still thinks the skeleton is funnier. The problem is Joy's sense of humor doesn't really match the other players here. And that's one of the things that can happen. It's the group dynamics that determine, you know, the particular judge is going to say, yeah, that's a better answer. I like that better. He's just not that impressed with this answer. Joy would probably like it the best. Maybe. I don't know. She certainly picked it, although she might not think it's the best when faced with others. So there's something kind of weird going on there. It's one of the issues also with trying to show this. So like showing it in solo play is obviously not sufficient, but I would also argue that a group of players trying to play this and having the best time in the world with it, the kind of time that they'd enjoy, that, you know, would be the most enjoyable way you could play this game, just laughing, rolling on the floor drunk, and having a great time, also wouldn't be all that enjoyable to most people watching on video. There's almost sort of this medium level where, you know, I don't know, maybe the kind of snarkiness that, what's his name, Will Wheaton's show kind of had. That's probably the best way to show off a game like this, where people are half aware that they're on camera and playing to it and used to being able to do that. Whatever. So we end up picking the skeleton here, and that's a 3-5. Now 1, 2, 3, I get to bounce someone. That seems my best choice, because I also get a card, and I will be getting the score for this. What helps treat premature hair loss? Eating foreskin, sharing dirty needles with strangers, and coprophilia, which is the love of shit. Okay, well, I kind of like the sharing dirty needles with strangers. That's the most likely to cause death. So we're in favor of that. So we'll hand that over to Joy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Except that's going to hurt me. Too bad. The skeleton doesn't really care about winning the game so much as, hey, nobody's used a ham yet, I don't think. It's an interesting thing. Saving them up can be valuable, as can saving up white cards to get yourself to the goal space. You trade them away and get yourself there. So there's a certain degree of, hey, it makes sense that people are holding cards and hoarding them, because you can cancel out the bonus with the hams and prevent somebody from winning. So what do we have? We have the dice go over here and clean up. What was Forrest Gump running from? Okay, again, something that, because I don't watch movies, even ones that are fairly well known, etc., for the past couple of decades, maybe more, call it 3 decades, just about. I don't really, I've never seen Forrest Gump, so I don't have a good sense of the humor involved in this, which is kind of a problem with me. More than anything else, I would suck at more modern versions of Trivial Pursuit, for example. All right. The choices I came up with here: a blind orphan. Doesn't sound like something that would be hard to run from, but okay. Reevaluating your life choices and a shit job. I'm torn between those two. I'm going to give it to... I'm going to look at my numbers. I'm going to give it to the skeleton because he can then bump this, get a yellow card. Oh, that's too sweet not to play. And some cleanup. New evidence reveals that blank is the true origin of HIV/AIDS. Somebody has something about AIDS carrying monkeys. Harley the unicorn. Doing it so hard that you give yourself swollen genitals. And a girl in a mini dress shitting herself. The skeleton detects no real death in any of these. A hard call on them. We're going to give it not to one of these two. We'll give it to Joy. But she gets to go far ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now here's the thing. Joy has 2 cards. She could jump ahead, but here's the problem with that. People have ham. Well, at least 2 hams are out there. She will not win by doing that. So she's going to wait and try to force people to play those hams beforehand. She's a good enough gamer to know that. Kids are finding blank the best way to come out of the closet. Learning Victoria's Secret, which seems very apropos. A little boy fantasy, again, maybe. A successful Houdini. Well, what does that mean? Well, the text here gives an interesting reason for choosing this. It could also be the legendary sex trick where a man switches with a friend during sex without letting the girl know. Waving from a window is just an added bonus. Boy, they're all acceptable and believable. Where would Joy go with this? Well, she'll think to game state at that point. I think she's going to pick a little boy fantasy because that forces the skeleton to go. He's going down a different track, and that seems wise. But White says no. So the skeleton's been canceled. Does he want this? This is a lot of spaces. He's going to play ham to get rid of it. I got to sort those anyway. Okay. So that fails this card. And that means he does win. Gets another card. And gets the win, and it's cleanup time. Time for me to swap batteries still. And a couple of advantages here. She's killed one of those 2 hams that could stop her. Still one here, so there's a problem with that. But she's also, you know, not far from victory herself. So there's she feels like she's got a 50-50 chance at this point, basically. It's a question of which one of these players can do it the best. There are 2 hams preventing the skeleton from winning, which means his 3 cards, he'll only be able to fire one of them off, and that's not good enough. For Joy, there's only 1 ham preventing her, but her 2 cards would only be 1 card as well. I'm sorry, the skeleton's up here. And so nobody's in a position where they can just kind of guarantee the win with trades. which seemed... I had to look up in the rules, and I could not find anything that disallowed it. In particular, you know, maybe I'm looking in the wrong places, but I looked at this, and there's no restriction to moving to the checkpoint using cards. And I also looked up, I seem to remember that there was something, but I looked up the gift giver, and I did not see anything that prevented that either. And there's nothing that prevents you from using multiple cards to just win the game if you're far away. So, there may be something else. Like I said, I vaguely remembered something, but I can't find it in the rules. So maybe I'm just thinking incorrectly. I'm thinking about the fact that these, you don't collect colored cards when you get one. Obviously, you can make an optional rule that you can't win by trading cards away. Again, or if there is a rule that you can't do that, and I don't know about it, you can make an optional rule that you can win by that. Really, there's a lot of flexibility into how you want to play the board game part of it, and the victory and all that. And let's pull a card for the skeleton to play. What does Charlie Sheen's method of foreplay include? Well, it's an interesting question. Oh, at least one person didn't have a great answer at all, the angry man, but laughing at the profoundly handicapped, intentionally downloading illegal images to a friend's computer, and dying during climax. I like the laughing at the profoundly handicapped as a form of foreplay, so let's go with that. That gives, let's make sure we don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's gonna jump ampersandy way ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to some location or another that's troublesome for him. If he goes 9, if he only goes 1, well, that's kind of silly. I'm going to go to here because I think a 1 is less likely than a 2, is my guess. However you want to look at that. And we'll move things around. Gameplay standard, that may be worse because I've given someone a ham. After seeing Blank in Hell, Dante was never quite the same. Okay. Of feminazis, Kim Kardashian's IQ test results, and a bin full of crack babies. Now, obviously, the skeleton loves this one. He thinks it's hilarious. But, unfortunately, I think Ampersandy actually thinks he likes the gang full of feminazis. There's a problem, though. He gets boned if he picks that. Huh. Well, don't want to get boned. So, is there another one that pleases me almost as much? Not really. And here's the other thing. 1, 2, 3 ends and wins the game. Now, you could ask, how much, does the person who's making this choice have, the right to say, I'm not going to pick the person who could either bone me or win the game directly by playing that particular card. Now, he is going to do that. However, he is going to also force himself, or no, the skeleton is going to force him to pick another pink card. Well, now it's a harder call. She's going to ham that because she wins if that's played. So there goes the skeleton's play. Well, he's going to do it again. And this time she does not have a ham to back that up. So, Ampersandy basically is saying, I'm going to make the judgment, the fair judgment, no matter what. And that seems reasonable to use these cards to interfere with just the play. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me to kind of allow the answers to be weighed a little bit by the game state, but it does seem unreasonable to me if you find one particularly pleasant, like the Gang of Feminazis, which for whatever reason Empress Andy really liked, to override that. But I could see different players making different choices there. So, I've managed to drain a couple of cards from the skeleton that are good at preventing wins as well, which might be important. And now I have to pick something else. I'm going to go with the bin full of crack babies. I think. And the skeleton will move 3 forward. Just because I think that's better. And we have some cleanup, but we may also have, let's see, there are hams out there, which means now that he's down to 1 card, he can't guarantee himself a win by trading away the card to someone. We have another ham occurring. We also have something else of kind of an interest, which is that, you know, yes, I drained some things, but the way the game is described, when you ham, you prevent somebody entirely from making the trade, I believe, if I understand the rules correctly. You partially negate. You can negate the effects of a colored card partially, completely, or prevent someone from using the gift giver mechanism. Now, as far as I can tell, it completely prevents them, which means the skeleton could say, I'm giving this, and someone could just prevent that entire mechanism from being played. That would eat up one of their hams. I'm assuming there's got to be some kind of time limit. That's not specified on there, but let's say it's 3 rounds or whatever that you can't give that card again. Either that or you give the card and you don't get the bonus. Either way, the number of cards that are out there versus the number of hams that are out there becomes differently balanced. Which is to say, let's say I just cancel it. Well, then do I cancel it again and again and again? Obviously, that's why there has to be a delay there. And I think the 3-round thing is good, but I feel like you have to add a rule to the game to make the hamming someone's use of a card for the gift giver mechanism as a reasonable thing. Now, you may just prevent them from doing it, but for how long? Again, it's not specified in the game. You may prevent them from doing it with any of their cards or with that card. None of this is spelled out. And that's a little problematic, except that the game is so loose that, hey, you know, the host makes a ruling and says, yeah, let's play it that way. Or the players could, going against the rules, make a decision themselves, which could inform the host's ruling, I guess. Anyway, I guess we draw another card and keep going. But the potentiality of hams being out there makes me say, well, if there is some sort of time limit, if you can't just keep playing it and eating up all the hams, well, then you're helping someone else, presumably, by doing that. I drink in the memory of a set of cards this time. 2 girls, 1 cup, 1 dream. What the fuck's up with the 1 dream? I don't know what the dream is, and I know what's in the cup. It's chocolate ice cream, but I don't know. But whatever. That's not bad. Whiskey Dick. Wow, that looks like a winner for most people, except the Angry Man put winning the Darwin Award, and man, that just plays to the skeleton's sense of humor too well. So he's going to declare a win for the skeleton. Now, Joy thinks she has the best answer. She's playing that. Here's the problem. The skeleton knows that Joy can't win with this. Well, Well, he's certainly not going to ham it. He thinks that is still Whiskey Dick is still the second best choice. So he certainly doesn't care one way or another. The question is, does the angry man want this particularly? Doesn't seem worth a ham for him. I don't think it was really worth it for Joy either. Except somebody could be sneaking up behind two players. So she will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ending up in the same space, and also ending up in the bad space as the person who won the hand, which she didn't want to have happen. So gave her a ham though, which will prevent other people from winning. So here we come to, one of the things. Sometimes players will, just like picking the wrong person, may play, and this I think is just the worst thing, may play a card like that they probably shouldn't have played because of the game effect of it. I see those cards as pure game effect. You can make no argument that someone, that's not the funniest, no. But she got so caught up, look how happy she is about it. She's a little slow. She got so caught up in, winning that hand in some way, which would make sense if collecting points for the cards was important. Anyway, that puts her on the next card. Who stopped the old man's loneliness? What stopped? Which works a lot better with some of the answers. Terribly good. A fart assassin. Hiding in the dark in a black suit and scaring the shit out of people. Yeah, I could see that filling a certain social pleasure. And Dr. Henry H. Holmes. And you're like, ooh. He's one of the first documented serial killers in the modern sense of the word. He had a killer house known as the Murder Castle. People loved it, though enough that they never left. Well, the skeleton would love that, but I think Joy likes that as well. So she's going to give that one to Ampersand, regardless of who wins, which is not Ampersand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a bump. Okay. How does Orange feel about this? Can she stop it? Oops. Whoops. Not good. She's just gotten bumped back by her own choice. Terrible? Yeah, but she liked that one the best. Nothing will leave me more jolly than taking Molly. We have a few here. Raising a child with Down syndrome. Okay. Butt chugging? Yeah, maybe. Taking out the children before they can rise up against you. Yeah, that's a skeleton answer for sure. Nothing will leave me more jolly than... Butt chugging seems to be the only one that even really makes a lot of sense. Although, sure. Okay, we'll let the angry man go. And we have no problem. Nobody particularly cares about him doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We will go down this way and get ourselves into a close range. Draw. What's the source of Mexican pride? Uh-oh. Now the angry man kind of games it a little bit more than other people do. But a half-eaten fetus. Figures. A racist uncle. Now there's a lot of cleverness there that, yeah, and it would be safe to give it to him. Overpowering your father. Well, there's truth to that. Well, 1, 2, 3. That could be dangerous. So I think I'm going to give it to the racist uncle. And because going nearly 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He'd get a color card though, that would help. Might be a lot. Yeah, we're going to do the 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get an orange card. You can make an additional pink card and play. This is the you get to draw back up to 10. Not terribly useful, I don't think. And another he may have, no, he only has one ham. And then we'll clean that up. Coming over. What increases life expectancy? Joy has certain beliefs, and essential massage certainly fits into those. Stealing a diabetic's insulin, there's a certain meanness to the angry man, no question. Not that there isn't to the skeleton with ritual abuse. What does Ampersandy find the most pleasing out of these? Probably stealing a diabetic's insulin, although it may be kind of ritual abuse, maybe. Are we going to see a win here? No. And I might as well give it to the angry man. 1, 2, 3, that's a bump. Sending the skeleton back, and we're awfully close. Describe something in one card. Anger. So, not a great choice here of a description, of a write-in, as we'll see. An angsty teenager, well, they might be angry. Dealing with an insurance company definitely would make you angry. And praying against someone, well, that's something you might do if you're angry. None of them are really hilarious. Not that he's all that into humor. So he's going to take a look at the game state. It's safe to give it to him. Who am I? I am over here. I don't really want to give either of these players a chance because they might slip up behind me. I'm in the lead. So I'm actually going to give it to Ampersandy, who I think has a reasonable answer. I think everyone does. And I'll go to the 2 because I think it's easier than the 1. Getting to the point in the game where you could see where you might want multiple endgame conditions in play. Basically, it's hard to get this exactly, especially if people are going to play to avoid getting you there. These kind of thoughts of, well, yeah, I'm not sure which one I'll choose. I'll use game state as a tiebreaker or whatever. Well, if you start doing that even, much less just refusing people to win, you can really harsh the game and make it very, very long. In which case, it would make sense to have hey, after so many cards. In that case, somebody who's not doing very well, who doesn't have a lot of cards stored up or whatever, and especially if you lose the points on the ham cards, which is not supposed to happen, but the ones that you played, you would end up in a position where someone who's not doing very well in terms of the cards they have stored up for victory might just decide, yeah, I'm going to stop worrying about that and let it end because it's coming close to ending and I may have no chance of winning anyway, even if they're exceedingly competitive in their play. The lawyer went over the jury, squeezing some swollen man boobs, letting sociopaths be sociopaths. He likes that one. Tasteful hoodwinking, too obvious. I'm going to go with the sociopaths one. And again, that's the angry man. 2 out of 3. He'll take the 3 and get a jump there. And again, it's really hard to hit things exactly. Queefing and peeing a little bit. Maybe. A dad joke. That one's definitely fitting. And a morbidly obese middle-aged man in spandex. So he's kind of got a maybe at all of them, but is kind of getting sick. Likes this one the best, and is going to give it to him for the win. Now, if anybody has a card they can stop this, could have done it right off the bat by preventing players from being in the trick. The problem is he wasn't in a winning position, so he didn't want to do it. Which means Ampersandy wins. Basically, because this guy stopped playing so aggressively so aggressively, let's make sure the board, let's play competitively, let's make sure the board goes, etc. He thought this was a good one. And what the fuck, it is just a party game and fun. Even the angry little man sometimes takes a chill pill and can get over his competitiveness. So, that's what we got in the playthrough. I'll come back for a little chat about what I think in general, although I've said most of it already. I think we're going to do this all as a quick hit, even though it's going to be more than an hour. Okay, well, this is the game of Ham. Otherwise, it's too low to show me and the box at the same time. Once we do this. Oh, I like this. Anyway, what do I think overall? So the game is imposing a structure on something that was largely an unstructured game, very similar to Cards Against Humanity, which in and of itself I see as derivative anyway, so, I don't have any real problem with that. I can see the desire to impose that structure on something. If you're playing a lot of Cards Against Humanity, it probably gets kind of boring to, not have some kind of real differential game goal that you can play within it, sort of a meta game within this. And by putting the structure of the board onto the game, you create that kind of more competitive environment that, may convince some people to play this kind of game a few more times. So, if you're really a fan of the Cards Against Humanity type of thing, and don't just use it as, it'll be fun to, a few shits and giggles to throw a few hands of this out and then move to, whatever the real game of the night is or whatever. This might provide a little bit more of a competitive environment that allows people to play it with a little bit more interest, who otherwise would be getting tired and bored of, just basically the read cards and make funny things happen. One of the things that I have to say is that games that are designed to be silly like this, I don't know if they necessarily create a greater silliness. There are so many roll on the floor crying with laughter moments that happen in fairly simple games, especially when alcohol is involved. But I'm just thinking of games of cards where somebody misplays and it just becomes this hilarious situation, or somebody misses some piece of information that's important or whatever, and it just becomes incredibly funny, even in a game like Bridge, which you'd picture as all these serious people sitting there, or in war games for that matter, or anything else. So there's something a little weird about hunting out that special moment and trying to overcreate it. And my own feeling when I'm playing this kind of thing is sometimes they're great and sometimes they're largely just not going to be as funny as you'd want them to be. Now, obviously, playing alone or with my little friends is not going to create that kind of humorous situation. On the other hand, of course, watching a bunch of people laughing their asses off, I just don't find that funny. It's not like, you can have things like the Carol Burnett, the famous Tim Conway is getting everyone to break character and laugh type thing. That's different because there's this conflict going on. They don't want to laugh. They're trying to stay in character and not be taunted by his ad-libbing into that kind of situation. So that conflict itself makes it more enjoyable and funnier to watch. That has nothing to do with the situation when you're actually playing the game. So again, if you don't have Cards Against Humanity and you're kind of wanting to get something like that, but you don't think you'll become totally addicted to it, this might be the better answer. First of all, it generates that kind of silliness. by intention. And secondly, it gives you this more competitive structure to fight over. There's a lot of flexibility on the structure, both with the different board positions, of course, the cards, but they're not really the structure, although the colored cards kind of are in an Uno sort of way or whatever. But also, there's a huge number of options that you can play this game under, so that you can reconfigure it and tweak it, and you can make up infinitely more. So by simply giving you some more mechanisms and structure to hang the game on, I think you're creating something that may catch some people's interest a little more. On my side, yeah, this isn't the kind of thing that would get broken up too often. I would have, it would be in that silly game set that aren't all party games by any means. That would be sort of the kind of thing you pull out at the end of the night or whatever, just because everybody's brain is burnt out and nobody wants to work too hard at anything anymore. And in some cases, that's things like Naval War, the old Avalon Hill game. But, this would serve well in that purpose. It's not going to be that long, one would hope. I do see that it does seem to be, without multiple ending conditions, just using the board end condition, if people are trying to play to win it all, they can prevent victory too easily. So you probably want to put something in there, one of the time limit type conditions, like number of cards taken or number of points or something like that. But again, it depends on how much time you want to spend playing it. You can also play with a smaller board, which might help a lot. One other facet that I wanted to address was the fixed nature. So with Mad Libs, everything was kind of, you were just being asked, everybody was being asked for, hey, give me a noun, give me an adjective, whatever, and filling them in the blanks in something that could be a perfectly reasonable statement. And there, you're based on the thinking of the player group. There's no judgment, there's no points, no winner, no loser. But what there is sort of a group agreement as to what's funny and what's not, and that's what you aim for when selecting these things. With this, there's this deliberate attempt to try to be edgy or whatever, and Cards Against Humanity, from everything I've heard, has the same situation, which I feel actually kind of makes it a little weaker. I think a stronger game is one that allows the players more capacity to define the game on their own in terms of what's funny and what's not. So this aims towards scatological, sexual, non-PC, whatever humor. And Cards Against Humanity does the same thing. Yes, there's some fill-in-the-blank cards for yourself for there, and certainly by having those restricted cards, it also puts you to more of a challenge. It's not just like, it would not be at all fun if it was just always fill in the blank for these things, right? Knowing what the sentence was ahead of time. What's fun in Mad Libs is that you don't know what the story is going to be about. And with this, having that restriction is kind of cool. One thing that I would think might be an interesting idea is instead of just... So I find the fill-in-the-blank cards for the pink cards a little bit too open. And then the other cards too closed. Where I'd kind of see as the middle ground that I'd really like more on is something more like Once Upon a Time, where the card kind of tells you something that you create as a statement a little better. On the other hand, what may be the case here is that what would make sense is that the gray cards are essentially written out as these sentences that are true. And then you clip, it may be a little edgy intentionally or whatever, and then you clip out key segments of them, that may be what's happening here, and turn those into the pink cards. So that what you've got is sort of a mishmash of full sentences that have had their edginess pulled out of them, so that sometimes the exact pink card that fits will be there. So, the source of AIDS was, and, whatever, the AIDS crazed monkeys or whatever that is. And it might be people eating them or fucking them or whatever. Anyway, this is definitely something I could see pulling out for some shits and giggles. Obviously, as a party game, that's what it's meant for. And it was enjoyable to cover. If I had real friends, I'd be more likely to be playing it again. Although my wife is kind of excited about the idea. She thinks that we need to each take a couple of our friends and try to play the game that way. I'm not entirely opposed to that. It might be fun. I'm not sure, though. I don't know if I'll have any more fun with that than doing it solo was. But I do like to be able to show games off. And, when people ask me, I'm like, yeah, I think I could do that. And I'm not opposed. I like the idea vaguely. And I certainly did want to give something like Cards Against Humanity a try, just to get a little bit of a feel for it. And I also was kind of curious about how reviewing a party game fully might work. Obviously, there's a lot of them I couldn't do. And this one, after I looked at it a little bit, I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I can. I don't know if I did. Cheers.